Boosie Badazz paid $600,000 for a pardon from this president. And surprise, he never got it. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. His instinct wasn't crazy, because in this pardon system, money and access are exactly what work. Now, Diddy and R. Kelly, they got in line and they're waiting for theirs. So let's talk about who really gets forgiven in America. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this is The Breakdown. Make sure to comment and subscribe, and be sure to follow me at Resident Legal Diva on Substack, YouTube, and socials, where I do deeper dives into these issues. So, who is Boosie Badazz? Let's start with his legal name. His government name is Torrance Hatch. Now, he caught a federal gun case out of a 2023 arrest in San Diego, and as a convicted felon, you can't be filmed with a firearm. So that is now a serious federal offense. He's facing real prison time, and so he did something that most people would never admit to in the light of day. He tried to buy his way out. So he paid $600,000 to two right-wing operatives by the name of Jacob Wohl and Jack Burkman. And by his own account, they were acting like they had that president on speed dial, and that they told Boosie's lawyer on New Year's Day that the pardon was already signed, done and dusted. Well, it wasn't. And the White House says its clemency office never even received a request. So old boy got sentenced anyway. He got probation, community service, and a fine. But now he's in arbitration trying to get at least half his money back. So, listen, it's real easy to laugh at Boosie, right? Because you got a studio gangster who's over here getting scammed by the swamp creatures, all right? But we got to sit with the deeper point. And there was a really great op-ed over at MS Now that made a great point about this. Boosie getting burned doesn't mean his read on the system was wrong. Because look at the history. Look who the president has actually pardoned. He's pardoned roughly 1,500 January 6 defendants. That includes Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who were convicted of seditious conspiracy. More than 70 fake electors got a pardon. A whole parade of white-collar fraudsters like the Chrisleys. You had former congressmen. You got people who own tens of millions of dollars in restitution to their victims. You got to the point where there was nearly $2 billion in court-ordered repayment and fines, poof, wiped away. And he also pardoned a former president of Honduras who was convicted of cocaine trafficking. Just at the same time, we're blowing up boats in the Caribbean talking about these are all drug traffickers. But let's flip it around. Who didn't get a pardon? And this is a number that says everything. So just this month, the country marked its 250th birthday. And the New York Times reported that the president quietly denied nearly 6,000 clemency applications. These are from people who didn't have any political hookups, didn't have the connection. They did what they were supposed to do. They waited in line. They filed their application, and this is what they get. During that frame, the president granted clemency to fewer than 20 people. 6,000 denials for the patient and the unconnected, and then fewer than 20 get granted heavily on allies who just skip the line. That's not mercy. That's a members-only club. Okay, and that is how the pardon system is supposed to work. Now, the scholars who study this on the daily, they said the quiet part out loud, that this mechanism is falling apart. The Office of the Pardon Attorney, now that is the place where all the career professionals who are supposed to vet these types of requests, that whole office has been sidelined with the pardon attorney herself getting fired. So what's left? It's a bunch of lobbyists and an inner circle. Not a process by which merit and, restitution and, trying to on a failure that you did in the past. None of that matters in this current administration. Boosie wasn't crazy when he assumed the road to a pardon runs through money and connections. He wasn't wrong about the machine. He was just wrong about which hustlers to trust. because, listen, he got, okay? Separately, the contract he signed, I just know he didn't have an attorney actually read it with him, because the whole thing reportedly was filled with errors, misspellings. They were promising results, and it was dated, if I'm not mistaken, it was dated before the date the contract was signed. So basically, you will see results by January 30th, 2025, and the contract, let's say, was signed on February 1st. It was a mess. So that right there should have been a sign that this may not be on the up and up. But again, this also brings us to two names that everyone's watching. Me very much watching, because this is a lot. Sean Diddy Combs is currently sitting at Fort Dix serving 50 months. Now, he was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking, but he was convicted on 2 counts of transporting people for the purposes of prostitution, known as the Mann Act, right? He wrote the president a personal letter asking for a pardon, and the president confirmed that he received that letter. And it is being reported that he's privately weighing clemency for Diddy as part of a pardon blitz, even though his own pardons team is like, don't do it, don't do it. And you got R. Kelly, Robert Kelly, who is serving a 30-year plus sentence across 2 separate federal convictions for racketeering and sex trafficking in New York, and then child pornography and enticement of minors in Chicago. His lawyers just filed a formal petition asking the president to commute a sentence. Now, let's be clear. A commutation is not a full pardon. Commutation means it cuts your sentence in half or whatever the amount determined, but your conviction still stands. So you still walk in life as a person with a felony conviction. You're just out of prison earlier. Now, the White House is over here saying, listen, that was just a random submission. I'm not really checking for him. That's what he's saying. Now, we all know in this administration, things change on a dime. Let me just be crystal clear about where I stand on all this, and this should be a surprise to no one, right? So, in talking about Diddy's case, let's not forget Cassie Ventura and the other women who testified about years of coercion and abuse, right? And I know there are people out there, oh, well, she got well paid, da-da-da-da-da. Just remember, she tried to leave. Of her getting beat within an inch of her life at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, that was her trying to leave. That is how domestic violence, gender-based violence, coercion and control, how all of that works, right? Everything's nice and fine and dandy. And then the minute you try to assert yourself and be like, hey, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that, violence ensues. Blackmail ensues. All sorts of horrible things ensues to get you back in line. And she was trapped in the middle of that, as were other women who either were employees or whatever the case may be. Now, when you're looking at R. Kelly, right? Now, I'm of that generation where I remember when he married Aaliyah and never knew the full story about it until much later about, well, first of all, when you got a 30-something-year-old man marrying a 16-year-old child, we already know that's a problem. But there were more deeply concerning things behind the scenes. And on top of that, he was preying on children for decades. Decades. And these women, these children who eventually became women, fighting just to be believed. And finally, they got a jury to believe them. So let's not get it twisted. A pardon or a commutation doesn't just free a man. It tells every single one of those survivors that their testimony, their trauma, the courage that they had to pull themselves together and talk about the most horrible moments of their life in front of everybody on the witness stand can be erased just by having the right contacts in your phone. One phone call to the right person, yeah, okay, we'll ignore all that. That's literally what we're right now. So here's the through line for all of this. A pardon is supposed to be about mercy. It's supposed to be a check on a system that sometimes gets things wrong. But when clemency and pardons run on money, celebrity, and access instead of justice, it stops being about mercy and just becomes another privilege for sale. Boosie found that out the hard way, that you can pay and still lose. The real question is whether Diddy and R. Kelly with more money, more fame, and way better connected friends finds out something different, and whether the survivors in those cases are the ones who are going to end up paying the bill. I'm going to be watching, and so should you. I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this was The Breakdown. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep demanding justice. Take care.